Alrighty,
Time for the
let's debut our top five
top
draft
five.
prospect rankings of the 2023 NFL draft. Now we're not going to start with quarterback. We're going to do quarterback last because we think that's going to be the one where we're going to differ the most.
Yep, the gloves are
And
coming
so
off.
gloves are coming off. So I got my draft notebook here. And we'll start. So then, since we're not doing quarterback, Chase, should we start with the running back position?
Yeah, I think so. We just talked about how we don't want to take any in the first, but it's a fun position, right? It's a position that they see it get drafted, fans go nuts for it. It's a very fun, it's one of the funnest positions, that the home run pick. So let's start with running back.
Let's do it. You want to go ahead and debut your rankings here, real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. At number 1, I have Bijan Robinson from Texas. Number 2, I've got Jahmyr Gibbs. Number 3, I have Zach Charbonnet. Number 4, I have Tyjae Spears. And number 5, I have Roschon Johnson, Bijan's backup.
Oh wow, interesting. So I like that. So here's my rankings here. So not a lot of we don't differ a lot here actually, just in number five. So my 1 through 4 is the same here as yours. My number five, a pick that might shock you, but it's going to be
Okay.
Chase Brown
Ah,
out of
I love
Illinois.
Chase Brown. I do be
Um,
liking Chase Brown.
yeah. So I mean, obviously, 1 and 2, Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs are pretty self-explanatory. Don't have to go into too much discussion about those players. Zach Charbonnet, my biggest notes here on his ability to be a dual threat running
Yes.
back. That's super super important here in the NFL as we become more of a passing league to have a not just a running back who could run the ball, but somebody who can catch the ball out of the backfield or even have some routes in the route tree to line up there, in the slot and run some routes as well. So I think Zach Charbonnet there is going to be that type of player for sure.
Yeah, no, I really like Zach Charbonnet. I think Gibbs is just a better athlete. That's why he's at 2. But I am very, very high on Zach Charbonnet. I like him a
Awesome. Well,
lot.
talk me with then how with Bijan's backup there at pick number 5. Talk me through kind of why you have him there on your top 5.
Yeah, so as looking at the running backs, watching tape, I think that the top 4 I think are the easy picks. That fifth guy you go a lot. There's Devon Achane from Texas A&M. He gets a lot of hype. Chase Brown, and then what is it, Sean Tucker from Syracuse, I think, or Sean Taylor, the really speedy guy from Syracuse. But this Johnson is just athlete, man. He tested crazy at his. I think he was at the Senior Bowl as well. It tested crazy. And that's what I thought. Running back, I think as much as you take hits, it's not a position. It's a position that if you have an athlete, most of the time they go to running back, right? You just want the fastest, strongest, best athlete at that position. And I think Roschon Johnson is the best athlete that we haven't already named, right? He might not be the fastest with Achane coming in at blazing speed, but I really like his just athletic ability to take a simple inside zone play to the house.
I like it. That's a good analysis. Yeah, and so for me, kind of what I was thinking on that number 5 spot, I was going back and forth with a couple different players, but I just kind of really fell on Chase Brown and just kind of really just kind of fell in love with him. He's one of my draft crushes this year at the running back position. I think he's going to be a steal later on in the draft. By no means, I don't think he's a day one pick at
No.
all. Day two, maybe at the end of the third, but probably not. But I really just liked his elusiveness. I thought was
Yeah.
very impressive. He was tied third in college of most missed tackles, and then also his ability to run the ball. So I mean, he had 23 runs of 15 or more yards throughout the season. So he's fast when he can get out there. He can go. And you love to see that obviously in a running back whenever they can find the open field and just take off and then make people miss. Obviously, elusiveness is a huge trait in a running back. Now, obviously, the only one of the biggest downsides of Chase Brown is his tendency to cough up the football. That is unfortunate, but obviously fumbles are going to happen, but you can come up there and you can make the most of it whenever you're learning at the next level to hold on to the ball. Going to be hit a lot harder, but you're going to have better
Yeah.
coaching and and just as you continue to grow, to make sure to keep that ball safe. But that's kind of why I had Chase up here in my top 5. Is I just really love his running capability, his speed, and his elusiveness.
Yeah, yeah, and as our resident Big Ten homer, right? I watched him quite a bit, and he was all of Illinois' offense, man. There, if Chase Brown had a bad game, Illinois had a bad game. They had that stellar defense with a couple of guys that I'm sure we might get to later on with in our rankings, but that offense ran through Chase Brown. You always like to see that. A lot of people talk about running back touches in college, how they're scared. But it actually proves that the guys who have the most touches in college are the most ready to go to the NFL, as Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, those type of guys. They tend to pan out better in the NFL.
Yeah, 1,600 yards, almost 2,000 all-purpose yards. So that's a lot of volume even in college. So so he can definitely handle the volume, I think, and coming up there and eventually be successful in the NFL. So excited to see kind of where he lands and his potential. So definitely someone I'll be watching when he gets to the league for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not mad about Chase Brown at 5. Right, moving on. What do you think? We've tackled the wide receivers. I don't think there'll be much. I think maybe our positions might be off, but I think we'll have the same 5 names, I believe. I'll let you start this one out.
Okay, let's do it. So at number 1, I have Jackson Smith-Njigba. that name's going to give me problems for the rest of his career. But I have Zay Flowers. At number 2. At number 3, I have Quentin Johnson. 4, I have Jordan Addison. And 5, I have Jalin Hyatt.
Oh, okay. So we don't. All right. So I'll rank mine, and then we'll talk about that a little because we do differ a little bit. We have number 1 is JSN again. I think he is just a knockout of the park home run wide receiver. Number 2, I have Jordan Addison. I really like Addison's ability. He's not a burner, but he's a decent really good route runner. He performed with Kenny Pickett, and he transferred to USC. He performed with Caleb Williams. Number 3, I have Quentin Johnston. Number 4, I have Josh Downs. Then number 5, I have Zay Flowers. So the guy obviously that we have different, Josh Downs. I really like Josh Downs coming out of UNC, Drake May and Sam Howell's favorite target back then. He's kind of small and he lacks strength at the next level. He gets kind of pushed around in press coverage a little bit, but I think that's one thing that the NFL weight room can help put up. I don't know how good UNC's weight room is, but I think an NFL team can help him kind of put the strength in his upper body. But he's an excellent route runner. He tends to pluck balls out of the air with his hands. And he was, for a little guy, he was kind of a red zone target, kind of like an Adam Thielen, where he was a red zone target, but not a big, kind of Masha target like T. Higgins is. I'm really high on Josh Downs.
That's good. Yes. I mean, I'm not, not mad at that at all. I just really love Hyatt. Yeah. It's each position typically have what I refer to as my draft crush, where it's just somebody that I really love and I refuse to put him anywhere below number 5. Obviously I'm not crushing enough to make him the number 1 overall wide receiver. I'm not that naive or that in love, but to be in their top 5, a player who I'm really high on, I really like, and for me that's Jalin Hyatt. I mean, you talk about speed, you talk about a guy that can turn on the burners and just run overs, verts, crossovers, and everything like that, and just get him into space, get him the ball in his hands, and he is gone. It's honestly just kind of like watching what Tyreek Hill does. Just one of those guys who is just so fast and just is good at finding the end zone when he has the ball in his hand. So I look back at the game that Hyatt had against Bama. When he just put on a clinic. I think he scored, I'm pretty sure, every single touchdown that game.
I think so.
Almost all of them. And so he was just getting the ball and he just took over that game. And so, so I just love on that game for me was when I was like, oh, this guy, I would love to have him on my team. So very high on Jalin Hyatt, excited to see kind of where he goes, what offensive system he goes to. The offensive system in Tennessee is very kind of gimmicky, very different.
Okay. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. So obviously, there is that concern. So, I haven't overlooked that as well. But whenever you're just looking at the talent that he has, I'm hopeful that he'd be able to translate that in the NFL and if he's in the right system and he's in the right offense, I think he can be very successful.
Yeah. Hyatt reminds me of kind of Christian Watson coming out of North Dakota State. They kind of run a gimmicky system, right? Christian Watson looks like a stud. I am very high on him being a Packer, but I wasn't happy when we drafted him. Right? Hyatt kind of has the same. He's kind of a bigger body. I think Hyatt's like 6'1", I believe, but a bigger body, speed guy. Kind of like an MVS. Again, but has, runs gimmicky systems, not the greatest route runner, and also kind of has trouble sometimes tracking the ball. Obviously not in the Bama game, but there's other games that Hendon Hooker put the ball kind of right where it needed to be, and Hyatt, it just kind of lost it in the sun. It seems like he might have a little problems tracking the ball, but Christian Watson fixed that during this season, so maybe Hyatt can do the same. I don't hate him in your top 5 either. I think that gimmicky offense, and also I think he was kind of hyped to run real fast at the combine, and he wasn't even the fastest receiver. I think that kind of soured me on him a little bit, not soured me enough to, turn away from him as one of the top guys in this class, but just kind of put a little stayed taste in my mouth.
Gotcha. But other than that, probably kind of a general consensus, at least of the overall top 4, for sure. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the general consensus for everybody. With this draft class, it's not, as stacked as some previous draft classes that we've seen, but still good quality talent. But I think the majority of the quality talent is going to come in, rounds 3, 4, and 5, kind of players that no one's really high on that's going to come out and kind of be successful. I think there's a big clump of them there that are going to be around that area where they're pretty much the same as far as, where I would take them.
Yeah,
they're kind of clumped together and haven't really, separated themselves, either, sooner in the draft or later in the draft. So it's just going to be one of those things where they're just going to take advantage of the opportunity and hope to ball out.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Let's go ahead and go on to a wide receiver's counterpart here. Half offensive lineman, half wide receiver. In the NFL, it's more of a kind of a fourth wide receiver options most times, but the tight end position. So go ahead and give us your tight end rankings here.
All right, I've got my number 1 as Dalton Kincaid. Then I've got number 2 as my man Sam Laporta. Number 3 is Michael Mayers. Number 4 is Luke Musgraves. And coming in at number 5 is Darnell Washington.
Okay, yeah. So we have the same players here, just in a different position.
I figured.
So I have Michael Myers Mayers as my number 1. I've got Dalton Kincaid as number 2. Then I have Darnell Washington at 3, Sam Laporta at 4, and Luke Musgrave at 5.
Okay.
And so my reason for having Michael there first is I have eyes. I watched Notre Dame play this season, and he was phenomenal. I like Kincaid a lot, but I just, as far as the eye test goes, to me, Michael Mayer played a lot better and has more potential. Yeah. So I'm not mad at Kincaid. If he was to go first in the draft, at the tight end position or over that, I'm not mad about it. But for me, if I'm looking at it, eye test first, and Michael Mayer passes the eye test for me 110%.
I agree. I have Kincaid, Laporta, and Mayer all as a second round, kind of that clump right there. I wouldn't be surprised if any of those guys kind of move up and down and go. I like Mayer a lot. Kincaid kind of a sneaky athlete. That's what they call all the guys that come out, right? A sneaky athlete. I think he's the closest thing that we've seen to a true receiving threat, kind of like a Kelsey or Kelsey or Pitts that can actually block, right? The Kittle's got that. Kittle's kind of a unicorn. He's built like an offensive lineman that runs. Kincaid's not. He's kind of a thinner guy, kind of a wide receiver, but he also has that blocking prowess, and I think he's just a little bit more of a receiving threat than Mayer.
Yeah, and then for me, having Darnell Washington there kind of at 3 is just honestly just coming off of kind of his combine performance. I'm usually not swayed too much by a combine performance because I don't value that as much as looking at a full season. But when you look at Darnell Washington, it's hard. And I know we kind of talked about this when we kind of gave our combine review, but it's hard whenever you're not even the best player at your position on your team. And so I think that's something that affected, Darnell Washington is having to be behind Brock Bowers, and Bowers balling out every single game. And we didn't get to see as much of Darnell Washington as we could have, as maybe we would have liked. And so it was important for him to have a strong combine where he was able to kind of showcase off his skills and talents. And he did that. He did that on a sled, and he did that as a receiver when he made probably the most athletic catch at the combine. So being able to put on those skills where you're just focused on him specifically, I think was important. And it kind of made me go back and watch him and watch his film a little bit differently by saying, man, I saw what this guy can do. Let me go ahead and look at this more. And with the limited opportunities that he had, I think he shows, his potential for sure that he can have, as a talented tight end, in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I agree. Darnell Washington, his 6'7" frame, he's huge. He can catch. He showed that kind of at the combine, kind of like what you talked about when Georgia ever ran an offensive move with a tight end. They always use Brock Bowers because that guy's a stud. So Darnell didn't really get to show off his hands or his elite rack ability in college much, but at the combine he definitely did. And I'm not mad at any of those. Those are the five guys. I'll be interested to see how they play out. And I think all five of them are pretty good athletes. Like we've said multiple times, go look at our mock draft videos. This is a deep tight end class. There's some guys that we, not in our top five that are going to ball out this year as well. So I'm really excited about this tight end class.
Yeah, I mean, this is the best tight end class I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree.
Obviously, since I started really following the draft, but still, tight ends are weird. They're never really. I don't know. There was the one where it was with Hawkinson and Kittle, or not Kittle. It was Hawkinson and Fant. Yeah, Fant. That was kind of another deeper kind of tight end class.
Yeah.
But out of tight end university, but
absolutely. Holler at Fant. Shout out Fant.
Can follow in. If Sam Laporta can follow in their shoes. But let's go ahead and move on to the offensive line, specifically the tackles. So I'll go ahead and give you what I got here. So I've got Paris Johnson as my number one. Then I have Peter Skoronski, Dawand Jones, Darnell Wright, and then Broderick Jones at number 5.
Oh, Darnell Wright. Okay. So I've got my 5 is Paris Johnson Jr., then I've got Anton Harrison from Oklahoma at 2, Peter Skoronski at 3, Broderick Jones at 4, and Dawand Jones at 5. And I have a first-round grade on all 5 of those guys. I think this is a very top-heavy tackle class, right? I like Duncan, and we kind of talked about that. But those 5 guys, I could see all going in the first and deservingly. So I really like them. The Darnell Wright, huh? Let's talk about him a little bit.
Yeah. So I mean, So I didn't watch too much Tennessee. I mean, I won't lie, I didn't watch too much Tennessee. Obviously, I liked, what Hooker and Hyatt was doing. So I watched them, most towards the end of the year when, it was like looking they were going to make a playoff push. I focused on them a little bit more to kind of see that. But I'd actually seen a mock, actually. This is what drew me to Darnell Wright, because I seen a mock to the Chiefs. And so I thought, well, let me, if someone's mocking him here to my team, let me go and take a look, because I really hadn't paid attention to him really at all. And then when I started kind of watching it and kind of watched what he was doing, I was like, oh, dang, I actually really like this guy. And so I really like what I was seeing out of him. And so he didn't give up any sacks at all. And he has experience on both sides, so a left tackle and a right tackle. So he's going to be able to come in and play either side of the ball, I think, effectively. And so maybe that is why he was mocked to the Chiefs, because we're kind of possibly in that limbo, right, of left tackle versus right tackle. Yeah. And so, so I just think he's very physical. He gets to the point of attack very quick, and just looking at that play, I think he's definitely in my top 5 for sure.
Yeah. I'll have to go and I haven't watched, like I said, I watched the Bama game at Tennessee, and then a little bit towards the end when they, when I thought they were going to match up with Georgia, and they faltered that. But, so I have to go back and kind of study him a little bit, see where I rank him. He really hasn't been on my radar, I guess. So I have to go back and kind of conform an opinion about him.
Yeah, well, go check it out. I think you'll like it, especially in the run game. He's a mauler when they're running the football. So definitely focus on that when you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
I think we had both the tackles for Ohio State in our top 5, right? You had both Paris and Dawand.
Yes.
As well, yeah. No, I agree. Walk us through a little bit, kind of what you were thinking. I can give you my thoughts after.
Absolutely. So I think Paris Johnson was my number one anyway, and then he balled out at the pro day. I mean, even CJ Stout, stopped throwing and looked over and said, "Hey, this guy moves like a tight end. Where's that been?" Right? Anytime you get your quarterback that's played with you, for your career to be like, "Whoa, this guy's a freak," that's kind of helpful. And then Dewan, right? He ran at the combine. He was one of the only top consensus tackle run at the combine. He's huge. I mean, just a huge man. And he ran like I think in the fives, maybe high fives, but still in the fives. That's insane. Like I just think this guy is a very mobile guy. I think he had the bad luck of playing left tackle because there's a generational cornerstone left tackle in Paris Johnson. So he had to play right tackle. I know a lot, not a lot of teams looking for tackles are in the Chiefs position where they could go right tackle. A lot of times when you draft a tackle in the first, you're looking for your blindside blocker left tackle. But I really like him, and I think he could probably make that transition to left tackle if he needed to, kind of like Orlando Brown did and Ron Stanley and such like that. But yeah, I'm really, really like him. And just because, again, he's huge and he can move, right? That's what I want. I want a big, muscular, I don't know how about muscular is, but a big, strong offensive tackle that moves.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I think playing at Ohio State is one of the college programs outside of Bama that really gets you ready for the next level for sure. And so
Yeah.
having that experience, with those two tackles coming up there, I think they're both in our top five for a reason. So I definitely think that they'll be successful. So definitely like those picks there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. All right, moving on to inside offensive linemen. And I did
Your
this.
favorite.
I counted centers as inside offensive linemen. I didn't want to watch, 5 film of centers and 5 film of guards. I don't know if you did the same, Garrett, or what.
I did the same. Yeah.
You,
Yeah. So I've
okay,
center and guard
perfect,
as
perfect.
interior. Yep.
Yep. All right. And I'll go through my number ones. And just like I said, I don't have any of these guys ranked as a first rounder, but I think, of course, some of them might jump up there. But I've got Osiris Torrance as number 1. Then I've got my first center, Luke Whippler. Then I've got Steve Avila from TCU. Got Joe Tippmann as 4, and number 5 is Andrew Voorhees from USC.
Okay. Yeah. So I pretty much have the same players except Andrew Voorhees. I didn't include him just because his injury, unfortunately. It's just I kind of took him out. He definitely would have been up there. I think he's definitely top 5, but just to do his injury, I've kind of taken him out because he's not going to be able to play this first season. So I've kind of
exactly.
Just forgot about him, to be honest. Sorry, boys. Hope you get better soon. But so I have Osiris Torrance as 1, John Michael Schmitz at 2, okay, Luke Whippler at 3, Joe Tippmann at 4, and Steve Avila at 5. And honestly, for me, I won't lie. Honestly, for me, ranking these people, it was kind of a struggle to put someone ahead of somebody else because I think there's a very good group of center classes there when you look at Schmitz, Whippler, and Tippmann.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was just kind of what I just had to put down and rank them. And so I just found some, nitpicky things to help me with my rankings and kind of where I've fallen. But I definitely think Osiris Torrance is a first round talent. I think he'll definitely go there because there's not a lot of interior offensive linemen, or there's not a lot of interior offensive linemen that are better than him. And so there are some teams that need that guard center combo, and Torrance can play both. And so I think that would be, it's going to be beneficial for some team. Maybe it's going to be the Eagles at 10, looking for, a replacement for their guard, Isaac Siamoto, who left to the Steelers. Get in there at guard, potential replacement for Kelsey. Is definitely a team that I'm looking at for him, for Torrance there at that position. So interesting to see where he goes. But I think as far as interior lineman, I think Torrance would probably be the only first round grade I'd have.
Yeah. He's the only one that I expect to go first round, but I don't think it's a successful strategy to build through the inside line. And, if it happens, I'll admit when I'm wrong. I'm glad to do that. But you're telling me that the Colts wouldn't be better if they would have picked a quarterback over Quentin Nelson when they picked him, 4 or 5. So until it happens, I'm standing on my thing. But I do expect Torrance to be a first round guy. I don't have, I only have 24 first round grades. So there's going to be some second round guys sneak up into the first round.
Hit me with your top 5 quarterbacks.
All right. Number 1, Anthony Richardson from Florida. Number 2, CJ Stroud. Number 3, Bryce Young. Number 4, Will Levis. And number 5, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR from UCLA.
Really? Oh, this is going to be fun. Okay, here's mine. Bryce Young at number 1. CJ Stroud at number 2. Hendon Hooker at number 3. Anthony Richardson at 4. Stetson Bennett. Number 5.
Okay. Coming in with perfect, with a lot. Glad we saved this for last.
And so let me preface this. I think there is a huge gap for me in between number 1 and 2. So for me, right, between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, to me, are 1A or 1B. I like Young better, so he's, my 1A. And then between number 2 and number 3, I think there's just a huge gap. And obviously that gap gets even bigger when you go from 3 to 4 to 4 to 5. So these are definitely not as close as some of these other positions. When we're talking about cornerback or safety or linebacker, to me, yes, it's a top 5 because you have to have 5, but it is, for me, not a close top 5.
Yeah. So I have a the same gap, but I've got it a little different. I've got the top 3. I think there's a big gap there. I don't think you can go wrong with any of those 3 guys. Then I think Will Levis is I still have a first round grade on him, but he is a tier on his own. And then I think there's a huge gap. A huge gap between him and it drops from I have first round grade on all of my 4 guys all the way down to a 5th to 6th round grade on DTR. So I think there's a huge gap there. But let's start out agreeing. Let's talk about, we have the same number 2 guy, right? CJ Stroud. There's not a ton to talk about, but he's accurate. He's pro ready. He's the model build that you want, right? I think he's our consensus number 1 pick, right? For the Panthers, You'd be pulling the trigger. So let's go on. We've got my number 3, your number 1, Bryce Young. Let's touch on him real fast.
Yeah, so obviously the concern is his size, his weight and his height and things like that. If he's going to be able to, play at the level, take the punishment. We've seen some smaller guys come into the league, have success. He's kind of compared to Drew Brees, but I just think that's, in this case, I think it's hogwash. I just throw it out the window. I said, if you can ball, you can ball, and Bryce Young can ball. Okay.
Yeah.
He obviously, Heisman winner, and you look at this past year when he was really, Alabama has had some of the best wide receivers in college football for the past 3 or 4 years, except for this year. So to look what he was able to do, where it took a miracle field goal against Tennessee to lose, and then a miracle 2-point conversion against LSU to lose, that knocked him, with the only 2 losses. So he played extremely well. I just love how he creates plays out of the pocket. He's able to run and keep his eyes downfield. He's accurate with the football as well. Just a playmaker. I love watching him, and I've said this before, where I'm in love with Young. If I could pick him as my quarterback, if I needed a quarterback in this draft, I would pick Young.
Yeah, and like I said, I have him at QB3. I still have a top 5 draft grade on him. I'm not low on Young at all. I just think I like CJ more because he's more pro style. My main concern, as we talked about it, is the size. And, a lot of time when you hear size, we think height, right? He's small. Oh, Aaron Rodgers fell in the draft because he was 6'2", and that was considered small back then. No, I'm talking about his weight, right? He weighed in at the combine at 208 was his weight at the combine. That's not the playing weight. He's going to play more towards 190, 185. You look at the guys who weigh that, Lamar Jackson injured, Kyler Murray injured, Russell Wilson didn't really have injuries until late in his career, but he was injured to start with, right? A lot of the younger, the small weight guys can't take the hits, right? These guys, and this is Bryce Young's going to go to a team, who knows where he's going to go, but he's going to go early, and early teams really don't often have that best offensive lineman. I think he's going to get hit a lot, and I don't know if his body can hold up. I do think he's the best anticipatory thrower of this draft. I think he makes throws instead of to the receivers, to the areas where the receivers should be. I do think that. I think he's got a pretty decent arm on him. I don't think it's like a Kyler Murray arm where the Kyler, can throw that ball out of the stadium or anything like that, or Josh Allen arm. But I'm just worried about his body holding up to these NFL hits, right? We've seen him get injured this year playing at a college level. And yes, he's in the SEC. It just means more, right? That's their slogan. But the NFL is just, every team has these guys that are going to hit them hard. So that's where I worry a little bit about Young, but I wouldn't be mad if Young went number one. I see the value. I'm not blind, right? I see the value in him. So which one of these guys do you want to tackle next?
So I want to ask you about Anthony Richardson.
Okay, let me talk.
And so this one, I know you gave it to me straight. So before his combine, did you have him as number one?
I did.
Interesting. Okay.
I did.
The floor is yours. Go ahead. So.
All right. So Anthony Richardson, right? He's the ideal project quarterback, right? When you think project quarterback, you think big, strong arm, mobile guy, more mobile than Josh Allen, maybe not as strong an arm. And the thing is that the project quarterbacks normally, right? Zach Wilson. I'm trying to think. I can't blank on a project quarterback right now.
Mahomes.
Who was the guy? Mahomes. Yeah, Mahomes was one, but there's not another guy that I'm just blanking on, but they struggle with pressure, right? This guy, Anthony Richardson was the least sacked quarterback in this draft class. He doesn't take sacks, right? He's not, he doesn't freak out. Where his project is in his footwork, right? He's got that kind of Aaron Rodgers syndrome where his feet get pointed to the sidelines and he launches that boy down the field. And I think that is one thing that you can teach a quarterback is footwork, right? We've seen it done over and over again. Josh Allen had poor footwork. Brian DeBoer worked with him. I'm trying to think. I had more examples. I should have wrote them down. I think that is his need, is his mechanics, not necessarily his arm or top torso. He throws with his body like you're supposed to. He doesn't just rely on his strong arm, but his footwork gets a little twisted and he gets a little outside of his body when he throws. But what I like a lot about him is the number one thing I look for a quarterback is how do you handle pressure, right? Pressure is going to come in the NFL, just like Mahomes, right? He won the Super Bowl. He pressured crazy. Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl, got sacked 9 times in the Super Bowl, or in not the Super Bowl, the divisional round against the Titans. But I think Anthony Richardson can handle pressure. And I think if you got a guy like that can handle pressure, I think he's worth a shot. I think his potential's through the roof. Will he ever reach it? That's the fun of the draft. We don't know. But I really think that this guy could be the next best thing in the NFL.
That's a take, my friend. That's a take. I just, not saying it can't be successful, but, for me, I have eyes. I have eyes. My eyes have seen the good. My eyes have seen the bad, and my eyes have seen a lot more bad than good. And so It's going to be one of those things where I don't know. It's just I couldn't get over it to where you would actually honestly consider taking him over Young or Stroud. If he wants to be the third quarterback off the board, I think he probably will be.
And I think he will be too.
That's fine or whatever. But to rank him over Stroud or Young, I think you're crazy.
Yeah. So I honestly think the draft will play out. Stroud 1, Bryce Young 2, and I think it should. I think those teams are drafting for now, right? They need that franchise guy. But I'm thinking about a team like the Vegas Raiders who can sit him behind Jimmy, or I'm thinking about the team that can get him like the Bears did with Justin Fields, right? They can get him in, throw him in kind of when there's no expectations really on him, let him work with what he's got as he's getting better as a passer. Because as electric as Justin Fields was last year, the dude struggled passing. And that's same thing. He gets outside his body, a little bit mobile, wants to jump on his feet, not plant his back foot as much. I think Anthony Richardson has the same thing, but I think he's a better athlete and he's got a stronger arm than Fields. I'm really interested to see. And like we've said a million times, it's about coaching. If Anthony Richardson goes to a coach like Adam Gase, I don't know, someone who can't, a QB whisperer that's not a QB whisperer, right, on smelling salts during the press conference, he's going to flame out of the league. But I think if you can get him with a young guy that knows, maybe even an old guy that knows what he's doing and knows how to work with a quarterback, right? He had a goofball quarterback at Florida, and then I think Dan Mullins was his quarterback, and then the Oregon guy came over as the coach for Florida this year. And I can't even think of what his name is, but neither one of them was real big offensive guys. Napier, thank you. Yeah. Neither one of them was necessarily quarterback whisperers, right? I mean, Justin Herbert was phenomenal at Oregon, but he's a phenomenal quarterback. That wasn't Oregon shaping him. So I'm interested to get him into an actual NFL, study time, get him like a Jordan Palmer type guy, right? Jordan Palmer, the QB whisperer, get him something like that to work with him and get his feet. And I think that's his major thing. I think his accuracy comes down to his feet, not his decision making. I really think that is the major flaw. And I think that's a very fixable flaw for someone that has a ceiling out of the roof.
Well, we'll see how that plays out. So something else here is interesting. So I know you have Will Levis in your top 5. I do not. So I definitely want to touch on that. I see a lot of him. Probably the consistent ranking is probably QB4 in the draft class. I think by a lot of people. I cannot stand Will Levis, and I will not touch him with a 12-foot pole. I want him nowhere near my team at all. I do not see it. And when I look at a quarterback, I want to look at how you play the position. I don't care about your arm. I don't care how far you can throw the ball. That seems to be the only talking point when it comes to Will Levis. And I don't get how you can be an NFL quarterback when you only have one thing that's talked about. Like, I know we talk about Bryce Young, we talk about his athleticism, his accuracy, his poise. Same thing with Stroud. He's accurate. All these different things. Every other quarterback here has multiple things that people mention when they're talking about him. When it comes to Will Levis, the only thing I ever hear, even from him himself, the only thing I ever hear is that I had throw the ball a mile. That's the only thing.
Yeah, let me give you why I still have him as a first round. So I think his release is insane. I think he's got one of the fastest releases I've ever seen. He gets that ball out fast, and I think that I contrary to what he played at this year, I think he's more accurate than he seems. But let me tell you the reason that I'm not as high. I have a very late first round. I think the potential. I draft a lot on potential at quarterback. Maybe that's a bad thing to do, but where he falters, where his accuracy goes down, where it doesn't matter how much, is Will Levis has zero pocket presence. Literally has no idea what to do when that pocket collapses, right? When he has a little bit of pressure, the dude just chucks the ball and sees how far he can go, and normally that's right into the defender's hands. That's where his accuracy drops. That's where he gets into trouble. This guy's pocket presence and just pressure handling is just, it's insane. It reminds me a lot of I just lost the name. The Ohio State's quarterback that drafted by the Redskins. Haskins, yes. It reminds me a lot of Haskins. A little weaker arms. Haskins better, but Haskins was a very cement-footed, true pocket passer. And when the pocket wasn't clean, Haskins just didn't know what to do. And that's what I see in Will Levis, except his release is amazing, right? That's what I kind of fall in love with. Yeah, his arm strong, and the old adage, you can't coach arm strength, right? You can't make Drew Brees' arm any stronger than it is, right? So I understand some of the hype for his arm strength, but also like his release is insane. It reminds me of almost like Aaron Rodgers-esque release. Not his ability, but just the time it takes him to leave that ball and where it leaves his hand. Just that's a thing of beauty. But I'm not as high as consensus are. I think Mel Kiper. I think that's Will Levis is Mel Kiper's QB1 in this draft, which should show you that he's probably not going to be that good because Kiper hasn't been good in forever. But that's where I have Levis. I like his release. I like his arm strength. I think he's a little bit more accurate than people give credit for. A lot of people are comparing him to Zach Wilson for some reason. I don't really see any comparison to Zach Wilson to Will Levis. They're two completely different quarterbacks. But the thing that scares me is the dude just crumbles under pressure.
Yeah, and for me, a big thing for me when I'm looking at who I want as a quarterback is I want to know how you are situationally, or how you're competing, and when I need you to step up and make a play to extend a drive or to score a touchdown to get the lead or something like that, I need you to at least make that play or give your receiver or whatever a chance to make a play. Obviously, if they drop or do something, that's not on you, but you gave them the opportunity. And I watched time after time again, just this season, to where they lost games because of Levis. They did not win games because of him. They lost games because of him. And so for me, it's just so hard for me to say, oh, that's the guy I want as my quarterback whenever you're literally the reason why teams are losing games. And very, very winnable games, too. I look back at how he performed against Tennessee. Tennessee had a terrible defense this year. He was not able to do anything against Tennessee. He had the chance at the end of the game to go, just get a first down to win the game, and he couldn't do it. And it's just, and so for me, that's just is what stuck in my mind, and I just can't do it. When you lose games because of yourself, I got to tick you off. So that's definitely why I don't have him here in my top 5, and I would not touch him with the 12-foot full.
Yeah, and I understand all that. I agree with most of it. Honestly, I agree with all of it. I think his potential might be a little higher than some of the, again, I think this quarterback class is very top heavy and then drops off very, 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 very far.
Yeah, so I agree. Once you kind of get past, I'll give you 1 through 3. The top 3 quarterbacks. Once you do there, it's very struggling. So that's why I want to talk about my Stetson Bennett pick here at pick number 5.
Sure.
And I want to preface this because I was really looking at it. I was like, I knew I can't put Will Levis in. And some of these other quarterbacks, I just don't. They're decent. They're all right. I'm not high on Stetson Bennett at all. I want to make that clear. I don't think he's going to be some first round talent. I don't think he's going to come in and be a savior of a team. I think he'll probably be a backup his entire career. Maybe get a shot, if the team he goes to, their starting quarterback gets injured, and do that. So why I say that as I preface this is because I find him very similar to Brock Purdy. And now it's very weird that we have a 2-time national champion come in and he's not hyped up at all. I just can't think of it, especially at the quarterback position. I don't know if we've ever seen this before and it's not just because, so he's good because the talent around him. He plays up, he plays good, he plays well. But the Georgia Bulldogs won not because of him.
In spite of him,
They didn't lose because of him. So, he put them in positions to win games. He didn't put them in positions to lose games. And because of their defense and the playmakers around them, they were able to win games. It's very similar to how Brock Purdy was with the 49ers when he took the job over. He did not play them out of any games. He played well within the system, and he relied on his dynamic offensive weapons, good coaching, and a stellar defense to help propel him to the NFC Championship game, in which I think if he's healthy, they win that game.
I agree.
And so for me, when I'm looking at that, Stetson Bennett to me, I think is the Brock Purdy of this draft. I don't think he's going to be Mr. Irrelevant. I think he'll probably go around, I would say round 4 or 5.
Ooh, okay.
But just we're looking at this, and I just think it's interesting. So we're looking at it like, last year. Could you imagine Brock Purdy had the success? So these were the quarterbacks that were drafted last year. So we had Kenny Pickett. It was the only round 1 quarterback to the Steelers. You had Malik Willis to the Titans at round 3. Sam Howell to the Commanders, round 5. Desmond Ridder, Falcons, round 3. Matt Corral, Panthers, round 3. Chris Olgukin, Steelers, round 7. Bailey Zappi, Patriots, round 4. Brock Purdy, 49ers, round 7, Mr. Relevant. And then Skylar Thompson, also round 7 to the Dolphins. So horrible quarterback class.
Yes.
Last year, 100%. But you can't tell me after this past season that if you went back and did a redraft, that Brock Purdy would not be the first quarterback off the board.
Yeah.
And it's not even saying because he's actually the best quarterback of the group. He may not be. I think time will tell. Obviously, we're just 1 season in. But because he was put into a system with great coaching, great offensive weapons, and a great defense, he was able to play within that system, which is exactly what Stetson Bennett was asked to do in Georgia. And I think obviously what he's going to be asked to do in the NFL. And so if he's in the right system, I think he could be, a decent quarterback and play well within it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Stetson Bennett, there's some things that concern me about him, but he's not looked at, if he was looked at as a early day 2 guy or it's first round or even a third round guy, I'd be fighting that a little bit more. But for the value that you'll get, where he'll be drafted at, I can't complain, right? Stetson Bennett would probably make my top 10 if I made one for quarterbacks. Again, this quarterback class, we can't say it enough. And I think Stetson Bennett probably would have been my QB 2 following Matt Corral last year. So, I'm not mad at that. I'm not a big Stetson Bennett guy. I think he's got some arrogance issues, right? Turned down the Senior Bowl, didn't want it, just some dumb things that he thought he didn't need to improve. Like, it's like that he doesn't want to improve his own stock going into this draft. it's not it's just weird. Something rubs me wrong about that. You got some questions about
I'd
this
agree.
guy. Scouts want to see it, and then you're gonna say no. I'm too good for that. Like, come on, man. But I'm interested actually to talk about your quarterback 3. That's the guy that I am not a fan of, Mr.
Hendon
Hendon
Hooker.
Hooker.
Hendon Hooker to the Vikings, baby. You hit it here first.
I would love that. I would love that. Dude's 25, coming off an ACL and a gimmicky offense where he just, I mean, watching the Tennessee games I did watch, dude just stood straight, had no movement in the pocket, just stood straight up and launched the ball, hoping that his wide receivers would go get it. I am very low on Hendon Hooker. I think the world is very low. Well, maybe not. You've seen that mock draft come out on, I think NFL Network had it. I don't remember who actually put it out, but it had Hendon Hooker at number 5 to the Seahawks. Like, you got to be kidding me. This guy, this is the equivalent to putting up stats equals getting drafted. Not looking at anything below that, right? As you preface, you have a huge gap already, so I'm not really talking about you, more talking about those NFL guys. But Hendon Hooker, I think we talked about a little bit when we talked about Hyatt, that gimmicky offense. I think that affects him less as a wide receiver, right? He's still learning the routes. He's just not running them. But Hendon Hooker, right? He reads only like half of the field every read. His plays are designed for that. Has very little movement outside of designated QB runs or QB scrambles. No, jumping on his feet or bobbing like quarterbacks you see like Mahomes or Herbert do, right? I am not a Hendon Hooker fan, and I'm 25 years old, coming off an ACL, so he'll be 26 before he even gets to experience any real NFL football. That's count me out.
It's a tough selling point for sure, and I don't knock you or anybody else for thinking that, but I look at what he's able to do. I mean, if we're talking about here, at least he had the second best passer rating behind CJ Stroud this past year. So when you talk about being able to play well, he played phenomenal well. I mean, he was a Heisman candidate there at one point. Kind of fell off down there at the stretch. Obviously, when he got hurt, he was playing Tennessee into the national playoffs. Obviously, fell out when he kind of got hurt. And they lost that second game, but definitely had a shot there at the end to make the playoffs. And I think maybe the story is a little bit different of him, but I agree. So, I mean, whenever he's back there and the pocket is clean, he's phenomenal. But whenever the pocket starts to break down and he has to kind of scramble and stuff, where Bryce Young kind of excels at that point, Hooker kind of goes the other way. So I'm with you on that one. Like we mentioned, there is a huge gap here in between. But as far as the other quarterbacks, I really like Hendon Hooker. He's one of the, I wouldn't say he's a draft crush of mine, but when we're talking about these quarterbacks, just his ability to throw the ball deep. He had one of the highest deep grades of all quarterbacks this past season. And so obviously the pocket's not going to be clean 24/7, so he definitely would have to work on that scrambling. But I don't think he's going to come in and be a starter anytime soon, but I think he can add, depth to a position. And so, so I like Hendon Hooker. Like I said, I think we saw the Vikings kind of take a chance on Kellen Mond out of A&M a couple years ago, and I think they probably look at Hendon Hooker as well, because that kind of play style is kind of similar to Kirk Cousins, where Kirk isn't out there scrambling and running around, very much, and so neither is going to be Hendon Hooker. Although Hooker would be 10 times more athletic than Kirk Cousins. But that's kind of my idea behind it is looking at, just his, he had a great completion percentage, almost 70%, had a great passer rating, second out of these top 5, at least my top 5 guys. And so just the ability to make plays when the pocket is clean shows promise. Obviously the injury and age is a question for sure. But you're still getting him on that 5-year deal, to where, might be able to make something happen. And, we'll kind of see, but I do like Hendon Hooker. I enjoyed watching him in college, and we'll see if that translates to the NFL at all.
Yeah. Think about that. By the time it would be by the time you get your second contract for your quarterback, he'd be 30 years old. That's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So
it's
just
tough sledding for him for sure. But
yeah. just briefly, I'm going to touch on my quarterback 5 because this is be my draft. Again, I have him a 5th round grade on him, but this is my draft crush. DTR from UCLA, Dorian Thompson Robinson. I think he's got all right accuracy. He's elusive in the pocket. His deep ball, he actually had the highest velocity at the draft. He throws the ball the hardest, right? That's not even Will Levis, but there's something about this kid. I never think, I don't think he'll ever be a starter, but he could be a Gardner Minshew, Nick Foles type where he could come in and win games for you, right? When, a Brian Fitzpatrick type that come in and win 2 out of 3 games for you. I like him as a career backup and just a good guy to have on your roster, right? I'm kind of crushing on DTR, to be honest, for no reason really, but